She doesn't belong here." The words weren't loud, but they sliced through the air like a knife. I stood at the doorway of the marble conference room, the smell of polished leather and cold judgment hitting me all at once. My parents were already seated, elegant, sharp, and empty inside. My sister, draped in designer silk, glanced up from her phone and locked eyes with me. A smirk twitched across her face. She leaned over to my mother and whispered something. They both chuckled like I was some awkward stranger who'd taken a wrong turn, but I didn't flinch. Not this time. My name is Claire Whitmore. At least that's the name they tried to erase. I walked in, no makeup, no luxury brand on my chest, just a quiet kind of power, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. "Why is she even here?" my sister hissed, louder this time. The lawyer cleared his throat. He was an old man, Grandpa's, longtime confidant, and the only person in the room who looked at me like I was meant to be there. He held a single envelope in his hand, cream-colored, heavy. "Before we begin," he said, "your grandfather left behind a final letter, to be read aloud, in front of everyone." Silence fell like a storm cloud. My father shifted. My mother's smile cracked. I stayed quiet, because I already knew what was inside. I wasn't here for scraps. I wasn't here for revenge. I was here to close the chapter they tried to write without me. They thought I was gone, that I failed, that I'd spend my life scraping by in the shadows. But Grandpa never liked leaving debts unpaid. The letter trembled slightly in the lawyer's hand. As he opened it, their world was about to tilt, and I was the only one sitting still when it did. They always said she was special. From the moment she was born, it was like the sun rose for her. My sister, blonde curls, dimpled smile, eyes like glittering lakes, the kind of child strangers complimented in grocery stores. My mother would beam with pride, placing a manicured hand on her tiny shoulder and saying, "She's our little star." No one ever asked about me. On her 6th birthday, they rented a petting zoo and a live magician. There were banners with her name, piles of gifts wrapped in pink foil, and a cake so tall it needed its own table. I stood to the side, holding the disposable camera, clicking photo after photo while she posed like a doll. 2 months later, on my birthday, I got a navy blue sweater, 2 sizes too big. No candles, no guests. Just my mom saying, "You've always been low maintenance. That's a gift too." I smiled and nodded, because that's what I did. I didn't cry. I didn't complain. I folded my hurt into small, quiet places no one cared to look. One Christmas, I'd saved up my allowance to buy myself a tiny music box I saw in a thrift store window. I was going to wrap it and pretend it came from someone who loved me. But the night before, I saw my sister crying because she didn't get the necklace she wanted, so I gave it to her. I told her Santa must have made a last-minute switch. She laughed, hugged me once, then ran off to show our parents. No one asked where it came from. No one thanked me. That was always the pattern. She sparkled. I dimmed. She demanded. I adapted. She was the golden child, the masterpiece they hung proudly in the hallway. And me, I was the frame, the quiet thing that held everything together, and was never once admired for it. It was a Sunday afternoon, but the house felt like winter. The curtains were drawn tight, and the grandfather clock ticked too loudly in the silence. My father had grown thinner, quieter, a shadow of the man who used to bark orders from his leather chair. Cancer, they said. The kind that doesn't wait for goodbyes. We were all gathered in the living room. My mother sat rigid beside him, her face carved from stone. My sister twirled a strand of hair around her finger, impatient, bored, probably thinking of whatever tropical getaway she'd fly to next. And me? I sat on the edge of the old armchair in the corner, the one that creaked when you shifted too. Much. I didn't move. My hands were folded neatly in my lap, even as my heart thudded against my ribs like it was trying to warn me. The lawyer arrived shortly after 3 p.m. carrying a slim folder. Everyone straightened except my father, who didn't even lift his eyes. The lawyer cleared his throat. "This won't take long," He began to read the will. Estate divisions, trust allocations, investment instructions. Then he said it, casually, like it was just a footnote. To my younger daughter, I leave $20 million to be dispersed immediately upon my passing. My sister smiled. Not surprised, just satisfied. Waited for the next line. I waited for my name. It didn't come. Instead, there was a pause, a long one. Then my mother said without looking at me, "We just assumed you'd figure it out. You always do." That was it. No apology, no explanation. Not even the courtesy of pretending they cared. My throat burned, but I didn't cry. I nodded once, the kind of nod that hurts more than shouting ever could, and stood up. No one stopped me. No one even called my name. As I walked toward the front door, I passed a photo on the hallway table. My father, holding my sister, as a baby, smiling like she was the only thing he'd ever done right. I looked at it for exactly 1 second. Then I opened the door, stepped out into the cold, and closed it behind me, softer than they deserved. That was the day they cut me out. But it was also the day I started writing a new story. One they wouldn't see coming. The days blurred. When you don't have a place to be, the clock stops, meaning anything. Morning, afternoon, night, all just different shades of the same silence. I lived out of a friend's spare room for a while, then someone's couch, then nowhere at all. Dinner became whatever I could microwave in under 3 minutes. Ramen, stale crackers, a half-eaten sandwich from someone else's meeting tray. I told myself it was temporary. I lied to myself a lot back then. Rejection. Emails piled up faster than I could delete them. "We regret to inform you." Every time I read those words, it was like someone was confirming what my parents had already said. I wasn't good enough. I didn't sleep much. Some nights I'd lie on my back staring at the ceiling, wondering if maybe I really was the problem. Maybe I was invisible. Maybe I was built to survive, not succeed. Meanwhile, my phone kept lighting up with reminders of what I didn't have. My sister, laughing on a yacht in Santorini. My parents, clinking champagne glasses in Maui. Caption, "Grateful for family." The cruel part wasn't just that they had moved on, it was how easily they had erased me. I remember one night, I was cold, desperate, pride long gone. When I knocked on my parents' door, my mother opened it just a crack. She didn't invite me in. I asked, softly, "Can I stay for a few nights, just until I find something steady?" She looked behind her, like someone might hear. Then she said, "Your sister's sleeping. We can't have disruptions. I'm sorry." And she closed the door. No goodbye, no hug, just a lock sliding into place. I stood there on the front step until my legs gave out, and then I walked away. Not because I had somewhere to go, but because I couldn't bear to stay. Later that night, I sat alone in a dim motel room with a single light bulb flickering above me. I pulled out an old photo from my wallet. One I hadn't looked at in years. It was me and Grandpa, sitting on a bench in the park. I couldn't have been more than 10. He had his arm around me. And he was smiling, like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. That's when the thought hit me. Maybe I wasn't worthless. Maybe I was just waiting for the right person to remember who I was. It started with a letter. Plain envelope. No return address. Just my name in slanted handwriting I hadn't seen in years. Inside was a note, no longer than a grocery list. Meet me at the garden bench. Sunday, 3 p.m. G. That bench. The one behind the retirement home, tucked between 2 overgrown rose bushes. We used to sit there for hours when I was little, sharing stories, sunflower seeds, and silence. I hadn't heard from Grandpa since before the inheritance bomb dropped. I thought maybe he'd forgotten me too, or worse, chosen to stay silent. But when I arrived that Sunday, he was already there. In a dark wool coat, cane by his side, hat pulled low like he was trying to disappear into the wind. He didn't smile right away. Just looked at me, long and hard, like he was checking to see if I'd broken. "Sit," he said. So I did. For a minute, We didn't speak, just listened to the rustle of dry leaves and the faint hum of traffic far away. Then he sighed. They think I didn't notice, but I did. I swallowed hard. My throat burned like I hadn't used my voice in weeks. They gave her the show, the spotlight. But you showed up when no one was watching. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folder. Thick, heavier than it looked. Bank documents, deeds, business shares. A trust fund in my name? Untouched. My fingers trembled as I flipped through them. This isn't charity, he said quietly. It's what you earned, and what they were too blind to see. Tears hit my cheeks before I could stop them. I hadn't cried like that, not since the night they locked the door on me. He placed a hand over mine. Don't let their noise drown your purpose. Build, grow, and when the time is right, come back. I nodded. Not because I had a plan, but because for the first time in years, I had something to fight for, and it wasn't revenge, it was legacy. Mine. My first apartment didn't have much, just a twin mattress on the floor, a chipped desk, and a window that barely closed. But it was mine. No one could take it from me. No one could tell me I didn't belong there. Every morning, I woke up before the sun and opened my laptop. I took free online business courses, watched videos on marketing, finance, leadership. I wrote notes on the back of old envelopes, studied while eating dollar store noodles, and every Sunday, I met with Grandpa. Or after his health worsened, we talked on the phone. He would ask me what I learned, what I built, what mistake I made that week. Then he'd say, "Mistakes are rent. You pay them to stay in the game." He believed in me, even when I didn't. I started small. Handmade planners sold through, an online shop, then custom prints, then digital templates. People liked them. Word spread. I reinvested every dollar. While I worked, my sister celebrated. Her social media overflowed with luxury. One day she was in Paris with champagne, the next in Bali with a new boyfriend. Designer shoes, designer dogs, designer debt. She had millions. And yet, not $1 went to anything that grew. Me? I had nothing. But I planted everything. Within 2 years, I had a 6-figure business, then a team, then offices. Quietly, without the world watching, I became someone new. Someone solid. I didn't chase headlines. I chased legacy. I never posted photos. I didn't need a like count to feel real. I had Grandpa's voice in my head. Grow quietly, let them be loud while they fall. So I built and waited. Because, deep down, I knew the world would hear from me again, just not the way they expected. The conference room hadn't changed. Same glass walls, same marble floors, same smug faces seated across the table. My mother gave me a passing glance, polite but empty, like I was a stranger on a bus. My father didn't even look up from his phone. And my sister, she laughed under her breath when I sat down. She actually showed up, she whispered to her fiancé, loud enough for me to hear. This should be fun. The lawyer cleared his throat. His hands were trembling. This is the final reading of the will of Harold Whitmore, his last and binding. Instructions. He opened the envelope slowly, unfolding the paper with deliberate care. The room fell still. To my younger granddaughter, the one who always had more than she knew what to do with, I leave exactly what she valued most: attention. She already took enough. My sister blinked. Her smile dropped like a stone. To my children, who measured their worth in numbers and overlooked character, I leave only my name, because it meant something before they wore it. My father stood up. What the hell is this? The lawyer raised a hand. To the one who was told to survive, you already did. The rest of you will now survive her. There was a pause, a breath that held the entire room hostage. I leave my estate, my remaining fortune, controlling shares of Whitmore Industries, and the contents of my private trust. To my eldest granddaughter, she earned what none of you could buy, my respect. My mother gasped. My sister's chair scraped against the floor as she stood, tears already streaming down her face. This is a mistake, She manipulated him. She doesn't deserve this. I didn't respond. I didn't move. I just looked at the lawyer and gave a small nod. Let them scream. Let them burn. They thought I came for scraps, but I didn't come to be included. I came to take back what was always mine, and as I stood to leave, I turned to them one last time and said, "You gave her money. Grandpa gave me a legacy." I thought it was over, but people like my sister don't lose quietly. 2 weeks after the will reading, I was served with a lawsuit, accusation of manipulation, undue influence, claims that I took advantage of a dying man. She didn't call. She didn't ask to talk. She went straight to court. The tabloids loved it. Heiress disinherited by scheming sister. She held press conferences in pearls and crocodile tears. He was vulnerable. She got inside his head. That money was meant for me. And for a while, it almost worked. Courtroom packed, cameras flashing, the gallery whispering behind their hands. My parents sat behind her, stone-faced, as if their silence could erase their guilt. Then came the confrontation. She stood on the witness stand, voice trembling with carefully rehearsed rage. "You don't deserve this! You tricked him!" Her voice cracked, mascara smudging, every inch of her performance designed to wound. Not just me, but everything I'd built. I didn't interrupt. I just waited for the judge to finish taking notes. Then I stood, calm, steady. "I have one final piece of evidence." I handed the judge a flash drive. A video began to play on the courtroom screen. Grandpa sitting in that garden bench, eyes clear, voice strong. If she challenges this, it proves what I feared, that she never earned anything. She only knew how to take. And if you're watching this, she's still doing it. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. The judge ruled in my favor within minutes. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed as my sister sobbed into her lawyer's coat, her perfect world unraveling in front of every camera. I walked past her slowly. Didn't gloat, didn't stop, but I did whisper. "Your money was a gift. Mine was a test. And I passed." I never moved into the mansion, not because I didn't deserve it, but because I didn't need to prove that anymore. Instead, I renovated it, room by room, not into a palace, but into a purpose. The West Wing became a scholarship center, named after Grandpa, the Whitmore Initiative. Every plaque on the wall was a name like mine, overlooked, underestimated, told to survive. And in the front office, I hired the same employees my parents once laid off when they restructured the family image. They showed up early, stayed late. They remembered how it felt to be tossed aside. So did I. I didn't hear from my sister again. Not directly. But one evening, I drove past a crumbling mansion at the edge of town. Her name still etched on the gate, though the windows were dark and the lawn overgrown. She had everything, and she lost it the way she lived, loudly, carelessly, all at once. I didn't stop the car, didn't roll down the window, didn't look back. I just kept driving, because I'd already arrived. They gave her everything to shine. But in the end, I lit my own fire.